Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, if you're hearing background noise, I just apologize in advance. Things are getting cleaned up today, so everything's gonna be back to normal very, very soon. I promise, I promise, I promise. Listen, right, ladies and gentlemen, we can see that we are at 54,905 holders, right? We talked about how we believe we're gonna hit 55,000 holders this week, and we are not too far away. By the time this video comes out, there'll be practically 48 hours left to see if we do hit it. And I truly, truly do believe there's a very, very good chance. I am recording this at 11:35 p.m. EST on Friday, and the video will be out at 8 a.m. EST on Saturday. So, just 9 hours or so, it's going to be uploaded. So information and everything is fairly fresh. Big shout out to Uber Eats for sponsoring this video. First 50 people get $20 off their first 2 meals, which means you can literally eat for free. Just use the code on your screen or the link in the description below. Fairly fresh. We can see if we go to Turbo, ladies and gentlemen, we are the 153rd ranked coin, right? We can see we're at 350 million market cap. We have gone down a couple percent on the day. We're at 74 million volume. So not bad, considering the whole market has been bleeding out, right? We know the whole market has been bleeding out. And, this is just something that, it's just happening, right? It's not a turbo issue. It's not anything issue. This is just something happening on the micro move, right? Like I always said, these moves personally don't really concern me too much, but I do know you guys like the updates. Look, I have some things drawn up, right? We can see that I had an arrow pointing here. The reason why I have an arrow pointing here is because this was Thursday on May 8th. I already believe there were signs of exhaustion for turbo, which pretty much was indicating that, hey, this coin should be reversing. There's not much power to it left. And then on this Thursday is when Ethereum kind of just went nuclear, right? It kind of blew up, which is why I believe we even had just a little bit more of a pump. But we can see the next day we already had like a doji type candle, and then we just started to go sideways and we started to sell off, right? We have this trend line, boom, we broke below it, we were retesting it, and guess what? We kept selling off. Friday, which was still today, but I guess the daily candle already closed, we did have retests off of this zone, but we could see that we failed and we closed lower, right? Around 4 a.m. we were pumping hard, but by the time 8 a.m. came around, then 12 o'clock we already started to sell off, reject and sell off. So I do expect this coin to go down all the way to 0.00472. It would not surprise me if we then get a little bit more of a fundamental pullback to the upside. But then again, we would probably break structure and continue to go lower. Okay. Overall, I expect the markets to be bleeding to get some type of correction. You have to remember that in the last 5 weeks, right? If we go even on something like Bitcoin, because this is the head of the snake, right? You have to remember that just roughly 5 weeks ago, guys, we were around, the mid 70s, mid to high 70s, um, right? And 5 weeks later, we are all the way up, boom, 6 weeks technically. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of green, and now a little bit of consolidation, a little bit of sell off. So you have to realize that 5 weeks of pumping, there's bound to be some kind of exhaustion, right? There's bound to be some type of, sell off to be happening. It is literally just inevitable. We can see that we have went from pumping movement to sideways movement. Now, you know, this doesn't mean we are going to necessarily break like 101K or 101.5K and continue to go lower, right? And get super, super big corrections. Because if that was the case, then obviously something like Turbo would suffer a lot. I believe there's a decent chance that we will get something kind of like the way we were getting over here, okay? Where we just kind of just range. We just kind of range between two zones, break up, range between two zones, right? If we go like this, boom over here, and then we clone it again, you see we are between two zones very, very nicely, right? Two zones, break up. So it would not surprise me at all to see, overall ranging could be a decent manipulation sweep, right? Manipulation sweep possibly back to like 99, 100K, or 100K is a psychological level. So I do expect some buy orders to be happening there. The reason why I'm saying this, ladies and gentlemen, is because it is all related and relevant to Turbo. Like I said, it is the head of the snake. So pretty much how Bitcoin moves is how Turbo is going to move like 99.9% of the time. Okay, that is just the reality. That is just the reality. So, if we do get continuation sells, especially if we go back to around 100K, maybe 99K, then I definitely do expect Turbo to be hitting that 0.004. Okay. Now, we talked about it before, but I'll talk about it again. I do think it is very, very smart to overall be dollar cost averaging in these ranges. Okay. I really, really do believe so. I do want to see a fundamental retest down to 0.0032. That is where I would definitely be buying lots of Turbo, right? Whatever positions I would have up here, I'd definitely make sure to be double downing once Turbo retests this, if it retests this. I think there's a decent chance. Obviously, it would require a massive pullback, which might not just simply happen, right? 40% is a large amount. If we do take the Fibonacci tool from the top to practically when the pump started, right? Boom, let's just say here, then we can see that would be a 78% retracement of the whole move, imbalance filled and support, getting tapped, the most fundamental retest you could possibly have. Portfolio reviews, economic and global updates and news, frequent up-to-date technical analysis, and a very supportive community. Sell and buy calls and trading education is provided. If that sounds good to you, now is the time to act. Once the markets start moving, there is no I should have, coulda, woulda. Now is the time. If you want to take things to another level, we have the blueprint that covers everything from A to Z in crypto that you need. No fluff, no bullshit, just the most important news, fundamentals, and technicals to have you succeed in these markets. We've seen this before with something like Turbo, where Turbo was not shy to pump, right? It was not shy to pump, but then it went back all the way to its bottoms, right? This has happened actually multiple times where boom, it goes up a lot, goes back to its bottoms. The only time it didn't really happen was when the market started to shift, very, very bullish. But we can see even then, right? When talk about this range high to the start of these pumps, right? We were traced 88%. So, like I said, Turbo is not shy to pull back. It's really, really not. It is very, very manipulated in this type of aspect that it goes into certain order blocks, it fills up certain imbalances, and then continues doing what it's going to do. Right. Even when Turbo was younger, practically a year ago, a little bit more, right? If we take it from when it really started to pump, 88% retracement. If we take it from a little bit lower, still practically tapped 88% at one point. So, you know, just be wary about it. Just be considerate about it because it is a possibility, right? It is a possibility, especially if Bitcoin does start breaking down to the downside, filling this imbalance, and especially if Bitcoin would hypothetically, right, want to fill up that imbalance and do more of a fundamental retest off of like 97, 98K, right? That would be a 5% retracement, but we've seen it before where Bitcoin retraced 3%. That caused Turbo to go down 12. And now if we use the same similar type of ratio, that means if Bitcoin did hypothetically go down 5%, we could see Turbo retrace even 20%. And if Turbo were to retrace 20%, then Turbo would be somewhere, yep, at these lows at 0.004. So yeah, just be wary about that. Just be wary about that. It's not set in stone that it is going to 100% happen. We've seen when Turbo has been, has pumped before and has retraced, right? Especially when it's in a bullish environment when things were recovering, which is kind of like the context we're in right now. It did retrace to the 0.61, 0.70. So if we did get something similar, then that would not also surprise me too. Okay. Remember, you don't have to have the most important, accurate, philosophy and ideology behind Turbo right now, right? You guys are not really leverage trading, from my understanding, you're just buying the coin and kind of holding it. So, buying at these zones would be very, very nice. And if you don't know how this tool works practically, think about it like the 0.50 being neutral. Anything below it, actually, no, think about it. The top is 0, right? That's maximum could have bought it. This is the cheapest in the relevant range. And if it goes down 50%, that means you are at a 50% discount from this relevant top, which is very, very nice. So, if something's 50% off, would you buy it? I would say yeah. Something 61% off, would you buy? I say yeah. 70%, yeah. So just think about it that way, ladies and gentlemen, right? Think about it that way. Super, super simple and easy ideology and philosophy to follow. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Things should be back to normal sooner than later. I really, really do hope so, right? Just cleaning the room and stuff for renovation still. Setup is not complete, but it should be by the time the other videos come out. I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.